Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to episode 5 of our listeners' podcast. Today, we are going to talk about an immensely important topic, a topic that has always been important, but with the return to work and the need to optimize and drive higher value of real estate, we are going to be talking about spatial intelligence, human censored sensing, and the power of perplexity. And to talk about this, we have a very special guest all the way from Tel Aviv, Israel. Amir Einav, who is the CEO of PointGrab. Today's guest is someone who's shaping the future of how we see and design our buildings. Literally, Amir is the CEO of PointGrab, a pioneer in AI-powered spatial sensing solutions. He brings a multidisciplinary background across cybersecurity, telecom, and now PropTech, giving him a rare lens on the convergence of deep tech, human experience, and intelligent environments. Under Amir's leadership, PointGrab has accelerated partnerships, edge AI innovation, and the adoption of occupancy intelligence across global campuses and workspaces. But more than just data or sensors, Amir is focused on making buildings more aware, helping them sense not just who's inside, but how to adapt in ways that serve people, purpose, and the planet. Amir, welcome to our listeners podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Emmanuel. Very nice to be here.
Perfect. Amir, to kick us off, Amir, we always like to delve into a person's journey. Why did they do this? What brought them here? And what is the motivation for you to do what you do?
Great, great. So, I was, you mentioned I was working in telecom, so networking, connected devices, but recent 9 years I was in cybersecurity, a very specific area of the IT world. My last job was actually in a IoT cybersecurity company. So we were providing the cybersecurity technology process and so forth for IoT devices. And when this opportunity came along, it was saying, just jump into the IoT itself, do the intelligent devices. I thought that's a great place. Specifically in PointGrab, it's the intersection between AI and hardware. That's hot. That's something I need to do. It's interesting from every angle. It's difficult. It's complex. It's interesting. And that's why, in professional life, you're trying to find those corners. And then comes the context of this specific intelligent device is the office. And if you're looking at a technology company to lead, you want to be in an area that is in change, that there is dynamics, and nothing is more changing now than our workplace. If it's coming from pandemic, boom, then we are now in the return to office motion and trying to figure it out. We are already seeing the horizon of the AI impact on the workplace. And of course, we're seeing the Gen Z coming into their workplace, and they, of course, will be very different because of, they grew up with a phone. They grew up in a screen next to them. So I think it's a place which is exciting, right? Both from the technology and the products perspective and the market, that it's all together beautiful.
Amir, it's a very interesting background that you have. Generally, people will start with devices, with sensors, and then it'll strike them, hey, security is most important. I've overlooked it. I've built an amazing product. You've taken the approach where you come from a security background, where you know how important cybersecurity is and the impact cybersecurity will have on the technology and access and use of the data, especially in today's environment. So with that, Amir, what is spatial intelligence and what makes it such a powerful tool for shaping modern workplaces?
Yeah. So actually, just to frame this, if people don't know, PointGrab is providing a sensor on the ceiling that is capable of understanding what's happening in the space. And that's creating the spatial intelligence out there into the cloud. Yes, I actually have it here. It's a little thing like this that is hanging on the ceiling. The whole thing, when we look at the workplace, for me, it's a supply and demand. The workplace leaders are offering some supply, something that they think is the right thing for the workforce. And the demand is what actually happening, right? How it's being used. Now, of course, after the pandemic, things become much more, who knows? And this is where the intelligence comes to play, because I believe that there is now much more than it was, let's say, 8 years ago when PointGrab was already selling its first product. There's much more need for feedback. There's much more need to understand, okay, so I have this supply. What is the demand? How do they match each other? And not in, it can be in a high level in the building level, but it can be a specific space. Is this coffee machine used? I mean, that question of the feedback, how is the demand actually matching the supply that I provide? That's where we shine.
Amir, just to go back to the point that you made, we are at a time in the workplace where pre-pandemic, we were all used to going into the office, working 9 to 5 or whatever schedules we have, having our social life, having our human interactions. The pandemic struck, we all started working from home for a number of years. And then all of a sudden, today, people are talking about hybrid. People are talking about RTO, return to work. Now, it makes a lot of sense if you have the same demographic. But along this period of time, a multi generational workforce has evolved. And I think your comment, today's generation lives off the phone. So, with all these change in the workplace, monumental changes that, our previous generation would not have experienced, but today we and the future generations are experiencing. How do we deal with hybrid environments? And how is spatial dynamics changing? And how is it more important today than when it was pre-pandemic?
I think the value of the office was questioned. Right? It
Mhm.
suddenly created what was like it's a must-have cost center we have to have because that's how work is done. Suddenly, the pandemic showed us that there is another alternative.
Mhm.
Maybe totally for a few months we were like totally work from home. Then we
Mhm.
started creating some sort of a hybrid. Now we're trying to figure it out, right? Like how much hybrid is good hybrid. The dynamics between management and control versus employee desire for flexibility, for choosing the location, the time, how much. It's really what I just noticed when I was looking at reports. I see that it's really about age. If you're young, you want to go to the office to collaborate with folks of your age and maybe even mentorship. But as you have small kids, maybe you need a little bit more time from home to manage things. I was working with a so PointGrab is really strong in the Nordics, UK. So it's more of a European business today, and Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so forth. You look at Sweden. You're talking to an executive, and he says like, "It's 3:30. I'm going to take my kid from." Now he goes like, and I was like, we are. This is a sea level. It's my turn today. Tomorrow I stay late. My wife takes it.
Mhm.
Balance. They found the right hybrid model that works for them, and they're managing. Sweden is a beautiful economy, right? There's no question that it's working well. And so to your question, I think the dynamics of the office is still shaping, but it's very
Mhm.
dynamic. It's very changing. And this is why, now more and more we see that the sensors and the world of feedback from the office to management and to the work to the employee itself, right? If you want to know if a place is available or not, before you leave home, you're supposed to be able to see it. This has become much more common. We see RFPs everywhere. This is a very, very now expected sort of technology or sort of answer to data that we need to provide, and different ways of how to do it, right? Different companies, different technologies, what have you. But it's very, very common now. I was just hearing yesterday, all new projects now in India, all greenfield projects in India, mandating occupancy sensors. It's
Wow.
like, yeah, sure, that's table
Wow.
stake now. So that's
No,
that's that is changing.
I loved your view of bringing in multi cultures and how PointGrab works across the planet. You are concentrated in Europe, but you have interests in India. And I know, from our engagements, you have interest in the US as well. Culturally, three very different geographies. All the same people, but very different behaviors and priorities. Now, if you are working with that, the biggest element, and even your comment about mentorship, going to the office to meet your friends, going to the office to meet your mentors, gaining that knowledge or learning something from the office. From your experience as an organization that focuses on collecting spatial data, occupancy intelligence, how do you see human experience and human behaviors being influenced through the data that your sensors and devices are collecting and making available to workplace planners and workplace strategists. What have you noticed?
So it's interesting because it's about supply, right? The workplace designs something.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the right office. We build it. And we see hundreds of designs, right? People, even if we don't win the RFP, we get the design, right? So we see so many different buildings around the world and how they actually look like, and how does their new designs versus the 5 years ago designs.
Mm-hmm.
Again, our first sensor went live in January 18,
Wow.
still working, by the way. The same office is
Right.
still totally operative.
Huh?
But that's and that was of course a design of 2015, right? When they thought of how this huge building in London is going to look like, it was 10 years ago. And when you see the designs now for
Mm-hmm.
2026, 2027, they look very different. One of the things that is actually an outcome of that, when we work hybrid, like you and I now talking, it's noisy. We used to work stand next to each other, each on his own laptop or what have you, and exchange. But now we are also talking with people at home, and
Mm-hmm.
that means that we need to have a way to the noise level of the office is raised, and the reason, and that's why we see now more phone booth in the design. We see more specific areas where you go and talk to your friend because you don't want to do it next to everybody else, where everybody's with earpiece and earphones and so forth. And this is actually, that's one of the dynamics of the demand. The supply has new designs such as a phone booth or collaboration areas, different spaces that are relevant now for hybrid. And we in PointGrab have to react to it. So one of the things we are coming out now is with basically a presence sensor next to our occupancy sensor, because we need to cover those now smaller areas that are picking up because of the change of how the office is actually working. And the nice thing about such a presence sensor, that it's not a standalone. It connects to the occupancy sensor, then to the cloud. So basically, it's an architecture. Allows
Mm-hmm.
it to be a very elegant deployment and going back to secure and simple. But you need to cover. You need to cover a sort of a changing flow plan. Used to be, we have desks, we have meeting rooms. Here is the big hall. Figured work. Now it's a lot more diverse. Yeah.
I loved your point, Amir, where you spoke about how our workplace environments have changed. They have gone from not just working with people who come to the office, but working with people who are also at home because they're working from home today. They've got priorities going on, they got things changing. Now, with that perspective, Amir, where we've said that the role of sensors, technology, hybrid work coming in, what is your view and what is your perspective on the role of sensing in building spaces that will allow to make these spaces feel more safe, more personal, and more alive? Can data make and emote those emotions in the users through this technology?
Yeah, and I think that the space has to provide more value.
Hmm.
But if you think about it, there is also a layer of technology. We just published this white paper relating to who's calling the shots. And of course, it was
Hmm.
always COO, CFO. It's a cost center.
Hmm.
But we see more and more in our engagements CIOs stepping in and having an opinion because it's a connected environment. If it's work itself is connected, and also the expectation of the work tech infrastructure will be providing that connectivity. So to your point about emotion, we see a huge take on booking systems. Why booking systems? Because you're coming from home. You want to know that you have somewhere to sit. There is, by the way, much more demand now for meeting rooms than it used to be. Why? Because now if you're coming to the office, it's for the meeting room. So you need to have a place where you actually can collaborate. It's not about a chance. It's a plan. If you want to have a booking system, functions like a releasing of a book space because it's not used, which a sensor is basically capable of providing, right? Because sensor is the feedback. And while the space is booked, you're not going to the office because it's booked. Now it's free. You're coming to the office.
Hmm.
The sensor will, if it allows you to release fast, because nobody will, so you trust the system, you trust the booking environment because it's true, right? You don't just, those are, most of annoying thing is to walk on the corridor and know this room is booked. It says red on the sign. You look inside, there's nobody. Like, why? You don't trust it anymore. So if you want a booking system to work, you want to have this feedback between reality and what was booked. So, you talked about emotion. I think this is a lot of little things where the employee is basically saying, this is a great place to work. This is a place where people cherish my time. They understand the workplace. These people behind the scenes are taking care of me. The office is for me, and it's more fun to be there and more fun to engage with it. And actually, this term of earn the commute, right? I went to the office because
Hmm.
it's a nice place to be.
Wow, fantastic. And I know, Amir, from our discussions and interactions, the importance of data. So while we delve into the importance of data, could you talk to us about what differentiates PointGrab, the types of data it captures, and why is your sensor uniquely positioned to drive better value and better intelligence than your competition out there?
Well, I'm not going to be in a shameless publicity stunt here, but I will be saying that, we have a very reliable technology at this point. And when you say reliable, it's because when you deploy sensors, and let's say you are deploying them across multiple spaces, you want to have a technology that covers your different use cases.
Hmm.
Now, the use cases come from two angles. One is indeed the spaces. So what do you do in this, like I just said, a small area? What do you do? Do you want to count the traffic coming into the floor? So basically on the entrances and people count sort of data, which we can provide. Do you want to count in the small areas? Do you want to count the tiny areas? So one of the things we can do is basically we can cut out an area of interest out of the 500 square foot coverage of the sensor. I want to count that coffee machine
Hmm.
location as well. I want to know the 500 square foot, yes, but I want to know that coffee machine. Are people doing that? So the ability to granularity, right? So in one hand, you want to have coverage of all spaces. You want to have granularity, and I think for PointGrab, one of its advantages is that it's capable of basically being very flexible, of deciding of which spaces you want to cover. But also the other aspect of value is that you're flexible on the use cases. What do I mean? Data is data. And this is what PointGrab provide, what we call the sensor data system. We provide data. It's granular, it's real time, it's available in a very high reliability, good. But what do you do with it? It's then about open architecture. We really enabling you as a workplace leader to choose the technology you wish to use this data. And let's be honest, the project of installing sensors is a little bit of an infrastructure decision, right? After
Hmm.
you do that, and after you're trusting that you have a good, accurate, granular data regularly, I'm telling you, 7 years, 8 years of already operation in the same customers. Now, did they change in the middle their UI, the applications? Yes.
Hmm.
It's usually SaaS applications that they have different things coming up to them. We are working on an architecture that is totally open,
Hmm.
allowing all of our data, both the raw data, the aggregated data, all the layers of data we are providing to these applications.
Wow.
And if it's a booking system of today, tomorrow it's a cleaning ground application and all about the workplace management as FM. If it's analytics A, tomorrow analytics B, use cases. And this is part of the value that we bring. We bring a really open architecture to allow the customers to invest in something they know is good in collecting the data and then use it as they wish.
Fantastic. No, that sounds really amazing, and your comment with respect to open architecture, open standards, sharing the data. Just to dive a little deeper, when you said you provide all kinds of data, including native data from the device, and customers are so you don't encourage or you don't care whether they use your platform or not, you are willing to share that data to the customers. Customers can then consume that data and they can drive their own intelligence from the workspaces that they design and manage. Is this Is this the vision for PointGrab, where they believe in openly sharing all the data that is captured through their device?
Yeah, and it's not only a vision, it's also in practice, it provides our
Hmm.
customers a lot of flexibility. So we have a customer in the Netherlands that after 5 years with the
Hmm.
platform decided that they are interested in investing more
Hmm.
into workplace technology. So they hired folks and they developed their own platform, their own technology and everything. And we were like, sure, totally available for you. I mean, from our perspective, if you're part of our ecosystem, and we work directly here with the end customer in this case. Usually we don't work with end customers. Business model usually works through channel partners that are providing value add, either managing the sensors locally because they have the skills, the people, or really platform providers, booking systems, analytics technologies, different multi-facet platforms that are doing multiple functions in the same login, if you wish. They are usually representing us in the deals and in the interactions with the customers because we are behind the scenes, let's say, the technology provider. But in this case, in the Netherlands story, I was just telling you, they actually engage with us directly after those 5 years because I said we just want the data and we'll survive from there. Okay,
Hmm.
it's an option for them whenever. But to take your question further, is this the vision? One of the things we are now launching the next release is basically an MCP interface to our data. What does that mean? If I'm a customer and today I'm using a reporting tool, of course the data is available. Maybe I'm using an analytics, dashboards, drill downs, sorting, all sorts of massaging of the data. The new way of interacting with data is going to be an open chat interface. And we
Hmm.
know that. We're already seeing some customers saying, can I ask the data what happens in this building on Tuesdays
Hmm.
after 5? Can I turn on off the HVAC after 5? Or how early, no way. How early should we start the HVAC? Because when are people actually coming to this floor? On Mondays.
Hmm.
The question needs to be asked in the way people want to ask questions. And nowadays, when AI is becoming a generative AI LLM model allows you to basically feel that everything is in your fingertips. You can ask anything.
Hmm.
We as a data provider has to allow that, has to encourage that. And that's why we're coming up with an MCP server, secured, our own, not a third party, secured, authenticated. So we know, you getting your data and not somebody else's data. And you have a very clear new way of interacting with the data. That's part of our mission.
It is absolutely refreshing to listen to you, where the emphasis that you place on data ownership, where you're saying it's
Exactly.
my technology, it's my platform, but I am giving the ownership of the data to the customer that owns the building, that owns the physical space, and they can consume it however they choose to consume it. I don't want to hold back the data my device, my technology is making available to them. I think that's a very, very refreshing perspective coming from an organization or a company whose job is to sell devices that collect data and to monetize the data, but you are giving up that monetization and putting that power in the hand of the customer.
Emmanuel, I think it's maybe part of me being in California for 4 years,
Right.
right? You're growing up to that cult of data is for
Hmm.
everybody, and
Yep.
you're really understanding that openness is
Hmm.
what drives the business, what drives
Right.
the world forward. So yeah, definitely that's the strategy for PointGrab.
That's brilliant. So on that data point, Amir, when you showed your device, it looked like your device had multiple sensors. How many points of data, how many types of data does PointGrab collect to drive this intelligence?
So what we have an optical sensor, and
Hmm.
we probably gonna touch in a second about privacy because I'm sure
Yep.
that will immediately trigger for you to ask about that. But
Right.
we have an optical sensor that is capturing an image, a frame, and we have as well a PIR sensor, so ability
Okay.
to detect changes in infrared. But really, and going back to the very beginning when you asked me why I'm here, there is strong processor, there is a strong edge software that is capable of doing things with these two sensing capabilities, the PIR and the CMOS, the image capturing. And with the same sensor, therefore, we are capable of both measuring how many humans are in space, We can actually identify their location across the floor because we can collect, translate the XYs on the frame to the XYs on the floor plan. So we know where are the people in the detection space. We can also count traffic. So we can do the change in the movement and therefore count you as you go in and out from a location. Again, this is all software. It's the same sensor, but the software is capable of doing a different type of logics. And the same sensor is actually capable of identifying objects. Because why humans? Why not tables, coffee mugs, laptops? Sure, it's a sensing capability. It's a software, the AI software that we need to train to be able to understand what are you seeing here, what's happening. And I give you a funny example. If I put a sensor in this room and 2 years down the road, somebody came and changed the design. Now, and we work usually with large organizations where the guy in North Carolina is telling me, yeah, I have this building in Bangalore. I want to know what's going on over there. So if the sensors are there, and we know, by the way, if you move the sensor, so we can sense that you change the location of the sensor. But let's assume the sensor physically is towards the walls, is in the same location, but it sees different furniture. It's actually a trigger to say, okay, just a second here. We have a change in the office plan. Let's adjust capacity. If the capacity of the room is actually 12 seats, because large meeting room, 2 sensors maybe covering large meeting room, 12 seats, 10 seats, 14, maybe somebody puts on the wall some more. When we do utilization analysis, we can make mistakes if we don't know what is the capacity. So sensors are actually quite a flexible machine because of the software aspect. You're capable of bringing software updates and changing it according to the needs of what's happening.
Right. No, I think that's fantastic, right? The abstraction that you are driving from the hardware layer to the data layer and finally to the analytics or interpretation layer that the end user is going to get sounds phenomenal. And just like you said, Amir, the moment someone says optical sensor, everybody starts to worry, everybody starts to panic. Research shows it's actually the younger generation that is more cognizant of their privacy in terms of what they want to do. Now, the I want to touch on two elements here. One is, how do you navigate the tension between the importance of data and the value it's driving for your customers and the invasion of personal privacy or the perceived invasion of personal privacy? How do you deal with that? How do you answer these questions? How do you assure people that, yes, this is personal data, this is private, and we are going to guarantee it? How does PointGrab do it?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I think it's also the one that the company was dealing with from the very beginning. And privacy is paramount, right? People don't expect anything else but privacy in their workplace. I mean, with all due respect, they don't put our sensors inside bathrooms, maybe outside of the bathroom to see how many people are going in and clean them up correctly according to demand. But they don't, there is an element of that. But privacy, if you don't have privacy, you don't need sensors because then you can put a camera. A Hikvision from China, yeah, why not? But you don't do that. You do sensors. The reason for that is because people are expecting privacy. So, how do we as a company deal with that? It's usually through technology. How our customers deal with that is through POCs, testing. And I think what we see more and more is transparency with the employees to explain to them what do they get from the fact that the workplace knows how it's being used. And with all, they want to be hybrid, and the workplace therefore knows what's going on with the demand in such a balance. And so transparency, that's from the customer perspective. Technology perspective, and again, we were dealing with that from the very beginning. It's all about diligence. You have to be very, very clear with your engineering, with your customer, with the testing. How do you make sure that the privacy is assured by design? And then there is a layer of cybersecurity that protects it from being broken. Design. So I give you an example. We, in the way that the CogniPoint sensor works, the CogniPoint sensor has this camera here. It's basically a CMOS capturing sensing component, and it takes a frame, right? It takes a frame, pixels, understands what it sees. The way we designed it, that it's never saved. There is no file of JPEG or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Pixel goes into the memory, runtime. It's been analyzed by the AI to
Okay.
understand what are we seeing here, and then discarded. There is no file, meaning the file is not saved on the device. There's no file to be sent. And we make this sort of process, again, as I said, diligently, across the life cycle of the product, meaning as soon as it comes out of the factory, it's locked in this format, meaning the installer don't see a picture.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way for you to hook into our device with any tool to see a picture because the device doesn't have such interface to provide you. The only place where the image is shown, it's shown to the AI and discarded. And that's actually a powerful model because even the installer, there is no training on the job. Some of our competitors are doing training on the job. What does that mean? Meaning that the images are being trained by the AI, either in the device or in the cloud. I'm not sure, but there is a process of learning your specifics. We don't do that. We spend a lot of money, millions of dollars were spent already on training the AI model off your premise by generic pictures that we created. And then the
Wow.
AI is smarter. By the way, this is also an advantage where you're looking at, again, PointGrab been around for many years. Over
Mm-hmm.
the years and hundreds of customers, different nuances came along. Can you do this? Can you do that? Why it's not recognizing here? Oh, yes, because there is some blinking screen. From next to the person, there's a blinking screen. The AI thinks that's another person. Okay, clean that off. These are the improvements of the accuracy over the years in a model where the training is done off device. Right? The device is getting an AI model that is ready to run. And there's no need for the device to use any saved picture or so forth. So this is basically the approach. The approach is being very, very diligent. When we created this document that if the police or the court is saying, give me a picture, I cannot. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the most, there is no such a thing. I, as a company, cannot comply because I don't have such a picture. There is no way to get such a picture. The only place the image is facing the
Wow.
algorithm and then disappears. By the way, that is happening very, very often, right? Multiple times per second.
Well, Amir, it's such a refreshing perspective to hear how you describe privacy with PointGrab. Today, we are dealing with so many anomalies. We are talking about public cloud infrastructure. We're talking about cloud infrastructure hosted in multiple countries, uh, cloud infrastructure being subjected to different laws where the company is headquartered in, and these companies come out with sovereign clouds. Now, even though sovereign clouds are coming in, the right to data could still reside where the company is headquartered. And then a company like PointGrab that is taking occupancy data, that is taking workspace data, is coming out and saying, guess what? Even if you want snapshots of that data, I cannot give it to you no matter who subpoenas me because I don't even store it. It's there on the device, it gets destroyed on the device, and no processing possible. So that is what you are doing to assure your customers and your users that it doesn't matter because at the edge, at that device, the data is captured and the data gets destroyed. So there is no question of that data leaking out or people gaining intelligence from how one company is organized versus how the other. That's brilliant.
And like I said, you have also to encapsulate that with a strong
Hmm.
cybersecurity, right? So
Right.
we're installed in the biggest banks and we're going through regular audits and annual pen tests and what have you. But you have to have a good cybersecurity. And this is again I'm very familiar with cybersecurity, and I was impressed what they did here until I joined a year and a half ago and
Hmm.
improved it since then. Where we were
Wow.
able to add a little bit of we needed to add a little bit of elements to be able to comply with the latest European IoT cybersecurity
Uh-huh.
regulation that came just this year, 2024. And so you have to be fully aware that even if you develop something very nice in the design, if a hacker comes in, he changes the design, right? You need an envelope that is preventing them from doing that. And that's
Hmm.
this combination of design, privacy by design, and a cybersecurity envelope around it. That's what I think is providing our sensors very good edge on that aspect of assuring employees that this is the right technology that they want to see in their offices.
Fantastic. Amir, the one comment that you made really caught my attention. But you said you don't use your photos to train the AI. You have invested millions of dollars to pre-train the AI models that are deployed on your sensors. This is an investment PointGrab has made. So your device are pre-trained as soon as I take them out of the box. Point grab sensors are pre-trained. We can plug them in. We may fine tune it, but on a whole, there is no long training period for them to learn, train, and adapt because you've already invested in training them with a set of images and data that you have created and emulated. Now, the question here, Amir, is why did PointGrab do that? What was the motivation and the need that you felt that your devices need to be pre-trained? Was it value, benefit? What led to that decision?
So again, this is a 10 years ago decision, and the private investors and the investors that we have in our company was basically understanding we're building here an asset of a company that is a very really we started with Europe because Europe is much more, let's say, hybrid already from
Hmm.
from the mid 2010s. So it's been around in Europe, and hybrid is where, again, understanding the demand is crucial because the demand is fluctuating. The investment in AI from at that stage was, of course, very expensive because it's not today that you can take a model and run. And even today, you cannot really run today's model on a little tiny
Hmm.
microprocessor on a device, right? So there is a technology challenge in the past, and it's also today. We do leverage the fact that we do have this training data to keep on improving uh, our outcome, the accuracy, the ability to support multiple types of objects. If it's again, humans are humans, but you'll be surprised when you have a ceiling mounted sensor and you trained it on what you think is normal people, right? But then you deploy in countries where people are much shorter. So what happens? The sensor thinks he's in 2 meters or let's say 9 feet, but people are shorter. Is missing suddenly, so the image is smaller and it doesn't understand what is it looking at. So the training is actually helping you to, over the years, to become more accurate, to support multiple types of countries. And also, if we're talking for a second about countries are different. The things about the offices in different countries is you mentioned India. India is so big about cafeteria. It's all about how big is how big is the line for that. How busy is the huge dining area when you're coming with your four friends with a tray? Where to go? To the right, to the left? It's a walk.
Right.
And that's an India thing, right? And
Uh-huh.
you need to have data of different types to support
Uh-huh.
those use cases. I mean, the spaces that are being covered. So it's funny that you said when you look at it from technology perspective, with training data, but then it
Uh-huh.
comes to real life and how do you deploy sensors in multiple types of sensor spaces and different countries and different needs.
Wow. No, this has been a fantastic conversation, Amir.
Thank you.
We've been on a worldwide tour, starting with the motivation for the company, the type of sensors, the capture of data, privacy, and how data needs across the globe are different, be it demographics, be it cultures, be it needs and aspirations. And I love the last point on the size of the cafeteria for Indian buildings. It's just something that you don't pay attention to, but now when you think of it, like, oh yeah, they are pretty big, aren't they? That's probably one of the biggest assets that they have.
That's
But no,
important over
this
there.
has
Yeah.
been fantastic. Amir, thank you so much. Amir, do you have any closing thoughts before we conclude? Because this session has been phenomenal.
Great discussion, Emmanuel. As usual, you're driving to ask the right question for me to think, wow, this is actually fun topic to talk about for sure. I do want to to do the shameless
Uh-huh.
publicity here, to use your
Right.
opportunity to say that we are looking for a sales director for the USA. So we
Hmm.
want to go. I told you, we are about to go into the USA in a big way. And I think to have people on the ground, people that I lived in the States for 9 years. I love the States. So if I can get support from the community, people that listen to this podcast and maybe are interested to join us at PointGrab, I'll be very happy.
Excellent. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard that from Amir. If you guys are keen to work for a company that is influencing human behaviors, human attitudes, workspace design, and predominantly driving privacy at the edge, you should reach out to Amir and PointGrab and let them know your interest. But with that, Amir, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute delight having you on our podcast and looking forward and wishing PointGrab all the very best of success in the future.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Talk to you later.